The sound of the wire snapping was sharp and clean like a rifle crack in the quiet. The barbed strand recoiled humming, and the post shivered under my palm. Third break this week on the south line. I crouched in the dust and followed the metal with my fingers. Not a rust pop, not a steer rubbing. The cut was straight bright at the edges, like someone had pinched it with bolt cutters and walked away smiling. Sage sat heavy in the heat, that dry, peppery smell that always made the ranch feel like mine. Today it mixed with the hot metallic sting of fresh steel. I found boot prints near the post. Clean tread. No cattle sign. The prints angled toward the paved road where the new subdivision started. Tan stucco houses, short driveways, plastic mailboxes, sprinklers hissing at grass that didn't belong here. Sunridge Development's latest community? Their suits didn't come out to cut wire themselves. They sent contractors, survey crews. And when that didn't work, they sent problems. My phone buzzed. Sheriff Sam Rourke. "Caleb," he said. "County's getting flooded with complaints. Sunridge keeps calling about unsafe ranch conditions. Inspector Davis is still coming Friday." "I'm aware," I said. "You need a deputy to ride the line with you, not yet." I hung up and stared at the cut wire until my jaw ached. If the inspector saw a broken perimeter, he'd write me up. A citation turned into hearings, hearings turned into fines, fines turned into a forced sale. That's how people lost land now. Not with a gun, with paper. A plume of dust rose near the last cul-de-sac. A vehicle pushed too hard where the pavement ended. There was a hiss, a hard wobble, then a scrape that carried over the heat like a warning. I stood and walked toward the road. A black SUV sat dead at the curb where new concrete met old dirt. Hood up, steam pulsing out. The sweet bite of coolant hung in the air, sharp as a chemical slap. A woman stood beside it with a rolling suitcase, one hand locked around the handle. The other lifted the brim of a brown felt cowboy hat, like she was keeping the sun from thinking it owned her. I rolled up slow in my ranch truck and killed the engine. The dust settled. I stepped out in a faded gray t-shirt, work jeans boots that had seen too much wire and not enough sleep. She looked at me without moving her feet. Dark hair loose at her shoulders, eyes steady. A white tank top, red flannel tied at her waist, and a look that said she was used to rooms parting when she entered. "If you're here to tell me I can't park," she said, voice dry, "save it." The car made the decision. I didn't answer. I walked to the open hood and listened. The engine hissed again. Steam rolled up and disappeared. "Radiator reservoir," I said. "You cracked it hitting that washout." "Fantastic," she muttered. "My first hour in town, and I'm already bleeding money." I looked at the puddle under the front end. Bright green. Fresh. "You got a spare jug of water?" I asked. She lifted her chin toward the SUV's interior. "If I did, I wouldn't be standing here." I grabbed my rag, leaned in, and checked the hose clamps. A split line. Not a quick fix on the shoulder. "What's your name?" I asked. She stared at my face, then at the ranch logo on my truck door, then at the horizon behind me. Empty land, no gas station, no shade. Her phone came up in her hand. She tapped the screen twice. Nothing. She flicked her eyes to my truck, then back to me. "Elena Vance," she said. The name hit the back of my teeth. Vance. The family that owned the old estate up the ridge. The family tied to the holding company that kept filing against my grazing routes. The family that wrote letters with polite threats and never signed with their real name. "Caleb Thorne," I said. She nodded once. Not friendly, not scared. Just a decision. "My family sent me here as punishment," she said. "I'm supposed to renovate the Vance estate, sell it, and prove I can handle assets." 8 weeks. She tightened her grip on the suitcase handle until her knuckles went pale. If I don't turn a profit, I lose my trust, and the property goes where they want it. She didn't say Sunridge. She didn't have to. I hooked my tow strap to her SUV and cinched it down. "Get in," I said. "I'll tow it. Repair is on you." She paused. One breath. She looked at the steam, then at the road that led nowhere, then at my passenger door. She climbed in without a word and shut it like she was closing a deal. The Vance estate sat on a rise, like a tired boxer, still standing but leaning. The drive up was narrow, clawed by mesquite. Elena watched the land through the windshield, silent, like she was counting how far away the city was. When we crested the hill, the house showed itself. Clay tiles missing. Porch slumped. Windows dark. The place had been left to rot with intention. Elena stepped out and rolled her suitcase toward the porch. She stopped at the first step. The wood gave a low groan, deep and wrong. I heard it and moved fast. "Hold," I said. She froze, one boot hovering. I grabbed my hammer from the truck and walked to the porch edge. I didn't step onto it. I tapped the support beam with the hammer head. Solid on the first hit, hollow on the second. The sound changed, like a drum skin tearing. I knelt and pushed the hammer's claw into the underside, where the paint had bubbled. The wood gave way like wet bread. Termite dust poured out. Elena's eyes narrowed. That bad I slid the hammer out and put my hand on the railing to steady it, just enough to keep my balance on the dirt. I pressed my boot toe against the beam and leaned in to point. "See that?" I said. She leaned forward to look, not stepping, just craning. The beam cracked along the rot line with a sharp, dry snap. The porch roof above it sagged an inch, then another. Nails squealed. A chunk of clay tile skittered. "Elena, back," I said. She started to speak. The beam failed. The corner of the overhang dropped hard. A section of porch roof collapsed into the space where her head would have been. Dust and splinters blasted outward. The smell of old wet wood hit like a slap. I hooked my arm around her waist and yanked her off the line, pulling her into my chest and turning my shoulder toward the falling debris. Something thudded against my forearm. Pain flashed and vanished under adrenaline. She grabbed my wrist, fingers locked, and held on. We stood still until the last creak settled. Her breath came fast. That was close. I looked at the broken beam, then at her boots. "You don't step on that porch again until it's shored." She swallowed once and nodded. No argument. "You can't stay here tonight," I said. "I have to." She snapped, then glanced at the hole in the porch roof and stopped herself. "The nearest hotel is 50 miles, she said, quieter. "You stay here and the rest comes down in your sleep," I said. "You want to gamble your life on termite wood." Her jaw worked. She looked at the suitcase, then at the ruined porch, and then at my truck. "Where do I go?" she asked. "You take my guest cabin," I said. "One night." "You don't owe me anything for that." "I'll pay you," she said, quick. "Save it," I said. "You're going to need it." My guest cabin wasn't fancy. Clean bed, small stove, table that wobbled. It smelled like pine cleaner and old coffee. Elena carried her suitcase in and set it down like she was marking territory. She didn't ask for extra blankets. She didn't ask where the bathroom was. She found it on her own. Before sunrise, she was outside with her hat on and a travel mug in her hand. She'd pulled the mug from her SUV like it was a weapon she trusted. "I need a contractor," she said. "And a mechanic." "Mechanic is me," I said. "Contractor is Miller in town." We drove in. The air in town smelled like exhaust and fried grease. People watched her in the hardware store aisle. Not subtle, curious. Some looked annoyed. At the county office, the clerk behind the glass slid a stack of forms toward Elena like she was pushing trash. "You need permits for structural work," the clerk said, bored. "And if you're selling, you need the inspection schedule. Fill it out. Next." Elena took the forms, read the top page, and set them back down neatly. "I'm requesting an expedited inspection timeline," she said. "And I need the permit packet today." The clerk's eyes lifted for the first time. Expedited is not a thing. Elena didn't raise her voice. She pointed to a line on the posted policy sheet taped to the glass. Her finger didn't shake. "Emergency structural hazard qualifies," she said. "My porch roof already fell. You can either give me the packet or write a denial and sign it." The clerk stared, then sighed, and disappeared into the back. We left with a stamped packet and a scheduled inspection date. Miller showed up that afternoon because he heard Vance. He rolled up in a dusty truck and walked the property with a clipboard toothpick chewing like it made him important. He didn't look at the beam. He looked at Elena. "I can take this on," he said. $50,000 up front." Elena's eyes flashed. She opened her mouth. I stepped between them, not touching, not loud, just close enough that Miller had to look at me. "No," I said. Miller blinked. "You her lawyer, now I'm the guy who's going to be the first witness when your work fails," I said. "Write an itemized bid. Materials, labor, timeline, permits included. Then we'll talk." Miller scoffed. "Lady here wants it done, she pays." Elena didn't move. She didn't soften. She turned her head slightly and looked at me like she was waiting to see if I'd fold. I didn't. Miller's gaze slid past me toward my truck, the Thorn Ranch logo. He shifted his weight. "Fine," itemized. "Good," I said. "And no cash up front without receipts." Miller's jaw tightened. He left with his clipboard and his toothpick still chewing. Elena exhaled through her nose like she'd been holding a match between her fingers. She didn't say thank you. She didn't have to. She grabbed a pair of gloves from the supply box and walked toward the brush line. Days turned into weeks. The estate became a job site. Mornings I ran my cattle early before the sun turned mean. Midday I drove up the ridge with lumber screws, a generator, and my tools rattling in the truck bed. The Vance place smelled like dust, old plaster, and sage drifting in through broken windows. Coolant still clung to my hands, some days from Elena's SUV repair. That chemical bite followed me like a reminder. We started with structure, shoring posts, sistering beams. Elena held boards while I drilled. She didn't narrate. She just did what needed doing. "Brace," I said once, and she braced. "Hold," I said, and she held. When she didn't understand something, she didn't argue. She watched my hands and then copied the motion. She learned fast because she had to. One afternoon, we were under the kitchen sink installing a new trap and a shutoff valve. The cabinet smelled like old mildew and fresh PVC glue. I lay on my back with my shoulders wedged inside the cabinet. "Hand me the adjustable," I said. Elena crouched beside me. She slid the wrench into my palm fast. Our fingers touched. Her hand was warm, calloused now in spots from work. Neither of us moved for a beat. The only sound was the faint tick of the house settling and our breathing in the dark cabinet space. Her fingers pulled back first, slow, like she was choosing not to yank away. "Wrong size?" she asked. I tightened the fitting. "Right size." She let out a short breath that was almost a laugh. "Good." I scooted out and sat up. Dust clung to my hair. Elena had a smear of grime across her cheekbone. She wiped it with the back of her wrist and left a darker streak. "Your mouth runs like a motor," I said, nodding at her. "But you work." She tilted her head. "And you're quiet like a fence post, still in the way." Fence posts keep things standing, I said. She leaned closer to look at the valve. Her shoulder brushed mine. Another small contact, not accidental, not deliberate enough to call out. The power cut out that night. The old panel finally gave up. Elena stood in the kitchen holding her phone like it could bully the dark into obeying. She tapped the screen. The flashlight flickered. She made a sound under her breath that wasn't polite. I flipped my headlamp on and opened the panel. The smell of hot dust and old wire rose up. I reset the breaker with a firm snap. The lights came back. Elena stared at the panel, then at me. That's it, I said. She lifted her mug toward me like a toast. Congrats, you beat electricity. Electricity's dumb, I said. It just wants attention. She gave me a look. You always talk like that, only when I'm trying not to cuss in someone's kitchen. Her mouth twitched. She turned away before the smile could show too much. Later, we ate cheap pizza on the porch steps. A small space heater hummed between us because desert nights still had teeth. The grease smell mixed with sage and sawdust. Her phone buzzed. She checked it, then put it on speaker like she didn't want the screen pressed to her ear. Still playing contractor, a man's voice said. Julian, smooth, smug. Elena's jaw tightened. What do you want? I have a buyer, Julian said. Resort money, cash. All you have to do is stop pretending you're capable and sign. Elena kept her eyes on the dark yard. The heater clicked. She didn't speak. I reached for the phone. I didn't snatch it. I held my hand out. Elena looked at my palm for a beat, then set the phone into it. Julian, I said. Silence. Then a short laugh. Who's this? The neighbor you keep sending survey crews across? I said. Tell them to stay off my easement. You're hired help, Julian said. I chewed slowly like I had time. Check the recorder's office, I said. Then check the cameras on my south line. And if your crew cuts my fence again, Sam's going to enjoy the paperwork. Julian's laugh thinned. You don't scare me. I'm not trying to, I said. I'm telling you what happens next. I handed the phone back. Elena took it with 2 fingers like it was dirty. She breathed out once and sat straighter. Week 4. The roof was sealed. The porch was solid. Water ran. The house looked less like a threat. Inspector Davis showed up in a county sedan and walked the perimeter with his clipboard. He nodded at the repairs. He wrote notes. Then his pen stopped. He looked at Elena. I can't sign off yet. Elena's face didn't fall. Her fingers tightened around her folder. There's a lien, Davis said. Recorded last month. What lien? I asked, stepping closer. Elena opened her folder and pulled out a loan packet. Thick, crisp, too clean. My father, she said. Her voice came out flat. He wired renovation money. I thought it was mine. I read the first page. High interest note. Secured by deed of trust against the property. Default tied to completion milestones, not just missed payments. A trap built out of fine print. Elena flipped to the signature page and held it up. Her name at the bottom. Davis cleared his throat. I have to file the report. Until the lien is satisfied, title isn't clear. That affects sale. He left. The screen door slapped. Elena stood in the living room with the papers in her hands. The air smelled like fresh lumber and old dust. Her thumb rubbed the edge of the page hard enough to bend it. They set me up, she said. I didn't answer with comfort. I set the packet on the table and spread it out. Where's the payoff number? I asked. Elena, she said, swallowing, it's 50,000. I don't have it. I scanned the clauses. This lender is Vance Capital Lending, I said. Subsidiary. Same family. They didn't loan you money. They put a hook in you. Elena's jaw flexed. She grabbed a pen, leaned over the table, and started marking lines. Her handwriting got tighter with each note. not shaking. Tight. We need the recorded deed of trust, I said. And the deed history. We need certified copies. She didn't ask why. She grabbed her keys. At the county clerk's window, the clerk tried to shrug us off. Processing time is 10 business days. Elena slid the loan packet under the glass. I'm requesting certified copies for a contested lien, she said. If you refuse expedited processing, put the refusal in writing and sign it. The clerk stared at her, then at the packet, then at me. I didn't smile. I didn't blink. I stood there like I had all day. 10 minutes later, the clerk returned with stamped copies. Outside, Elena sat on the hood of my truck and read every line. The sun burned. The sage smell rose off the brush. She stopped on a clause, then on another. They tied default to the certificate of occupancy, she said, not to missed payments. I nodded. They wanted you to finish so they could trigger it. Elena folded the page once neat. So we don't finish on their schedule, she said. Good, I said. Now we figure out how to pay it off and keep you as title holder long enough to sell. She stared at the payoff line again. Her lips pressed together. I looked at the ridge at my fence line at the water access Sunridge wanted. Then I looked at Elena. I can cover it, I said. But we do it clean. Her eyes snapped up. Caleb, I'm not handing you cash, I said. We do promissory note, witness, terms. You sign, I sign. It protects you and me. She stared at me like she was weighing the shape of the offer. She stepped closer. Her palm pressed against my chest, flat and steady like she was checking I was real. You're going to risk your ranch, she said. I covered her hand with mine. I'm risking it to keep that land out of a resort deal. She held my gaze. Then she nodded once sharp. Paper, she said. Witness. Terms. Good, I said. That's how grown-ups fight. We signed at my kitchen table. Sam Rourke came by after shift, still in uniform. He read the promissory note, watched Elena sign, watched me sign, then signed as witness. Elena didn't thank me with words. She slid the stamped payoff receipt into a folder and shut it like a door. 2 days before the final inspection, I woke up to smoke. Not campfire, not diesel. Heavy, bitter. It crawled into your throat. I was in my boots in 10 seconds. Outside, the eastern horizon glowed orange toward the Vance estate. Wind pushed the heat like a hand. I jumped in the truck and tore down the road, calling 911, then Sam. Fire at the Vance place, I said. Now. When I crested the hill, flames ran low through brush. We'd cleared, but not enough. Embers rode the wind. The porch we rebuilt was smoking at the edges. Elena, I shouted. She was in the yard with a garden hose, water arcing weak against heat that didn't care. Soot streaked her face. Her hat was shoved back. Her eyes were wide and fixed. Get away from the house, I yelled. She didn't move. She aimed the hose higher, jaw locked. I ran to her and grabbed her at the waist, hauling her back hard. She went rigid for a split second, then her hands clamped onto my forearm. She met my eyes and nodded once. Truck, I said. She moved with me. I shoved her behind my open door and threw a blanket around her shoulders to block sparks. Then I grabbed my shovel and started cutting a fire break, throwing dirt, hacking at brush. My arms burned. My lungs burned. The smoke tasted like hot metal. A pickup tore down the back road fast, too fast. I caught the flash of a suit sleeve in the passenger seat through the window glare. Sam arrived with the volunteer crew. Sirens, water, foam, men yelling. The fire fought and then gave ground. The porch was charred. The yard was a black scar. The main structure stood. Elena sat on my tailgate afterward, shaking blanket around her shoulders. She stared at the burned line like she wanted to punch it. I crouched in front of her. Look at me, I said. She blinked hard, then focused. You're alive, I said. That's the win. Her throat worked. I almost threw it away, she said, voice rough. I reached for her wrist and checked her pulse with 2 fingers' steady pressure. Her skin was warm under soot. She didn't pull away. Morning came with wet ash and the smell of scorched sage. The estate looked like it had taken a hit and stayed standing out of spite. A clean sedan rolled up the drive like it owned the place. Julian climbed out first. Then Robert Vance Elena's father stepped into the dirt in a suit that didn't belong here. I stood beside Elena, a half step forward, not blocking her. Ready? Robert's eyes traveled over the blackened yard. He looked at Elena like she was a line item. Well, he said, calm as a banker, you managed to keep the structure. But now the value is damaged. The smartest move is to sign the property over. We'll absorb it. Julian smiled. Dad's being generous. Take the exit. Elena didn't flinch. She held a thick folder in one hand. In the other, a rolled plat map with county stamps visible at the edge. No, she said. Robert's gaze sharpened. Excuse me. Elena unrolled the map on the hood of my truck and smoothed it flat with her palm. The paper edges were smudged with ash. The county stamps were clean. I filed a subdivision plat, Elena said. Surveyor signed, planning signed, recorder stamped. This parcel is now split. Julian's smile twitched. You can't do that fast. Elena flipped the folder open and laid down documents one by one. Certified copies, recorder's receipt, surveyor affidavit, proof of lien payoff, a recorded deed. She tapped each paper with the tip of her finger like she was calling shots. I kept the house and 5 acres, she said. The rest, hundreds of acres, are a separate parcel now. Robert's face went still, and Elena slid the final deed forward. And I sold it. Julian laughed once sharp. To who Elena didn't look at him at first, she looked at her father. I sold the remainder to Caleb Thorne, she said, for $1. Robert's eyes moved to me. For the first time, he looked like he'd misread a number. Julian's laugh died. That's not real. Elena pushed the deed closer. It's recorded, she said. The legal description is on the back. Title owner is Caleb Thorne. Robert's jaw tightened. You destroyed the development value. Elena's voice stayed even. That was the point. Julian snapped, you can't build a resort without the acreage, without the access, without the contiguous land. Elena cut him off with a small motion of her hand. Correct. Sheriff Sam Rourke's cruiser crunched up behind the sedan. Sam stepped out, slow eyes scanning the ash line, the tire tracks, the empty back road. Morning, Sam said. Robert's posture shifted at the sight of law. Elena nodded toward the blackened strip behind the house. Your deputies might want to look at the back road. A pickup left right after the fire started. Maybe it was nothing. Julian's face changed fast. Anger tried to show, then got swallowed. Sam looked at Julian and Robert like he was measuring them for handcuffs. We'll have a chat, he said. Robert stared at Elena again, like he couldn't believe she'd aimed a blade at the family business and twisted. He didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He got back into the sedan. Julian followed, eyes burning, but he didn't speak. Not with Sam there. They drove away. The air settled after the engine noise faded. Wet ash smell. The house still stood. The land behind it was mine now on paper. Elena leaned against my truck and let the fight drain out. Her forearm was red where an ember had kissed it. Sit, I said. She sat on the tailgate. I opened my first aid kit and cleaned the burn with cool water. Her skin flinched once, then held steady. You didn't have to pay the lien, she said. I wrapped gauze around her forearm and taped it down. You didn't have to sign anything without reading, I said. Her eyes flicked up. A challenge then, a tired truth. I won't let them trap me again, she said. Good, I said. And you won't run into fire alone again? She stared at me. That a rule? It's a condition, I said. Calm, flat, no begging in it. Her mouth opened like she wanted to fight. Then she closed it. She nodded once slower this time. Condition accepted, she said. 3 weeks later, the yard had new dirt, new gravel, and a line of green that didn't come from sprinklers, it came from work. The porch boards were mismatched, where we replaced the burned ones, but they were solid. We stood on her porch as the sun dropped. A small grill popped and hissed. The smell of grilled peppers rose into the cooling air, sharp and sweet. Smoke drifted past the rail and mixed with sage from the brush line below. Elena set 2 glasses on the table and poured iced tea. The glass clinked. Ice cracked in the heat. You're getting used to this, I said. She lifted an eyebrow. Getting used to not being lied to, yeah. I snorted. Careful, you'll start liking it. She took a bite of pepper chewed and looked out across the valley where my cattle moved slow, where the fence line now ran unbroken because the land on the other side had my name on it. My father called, she said. What did he want? I asked. Elena Vance, she said, voice changing as she mimicked him return to the city. Attend the gala. Smile for cameras. Fix the narrative. And you? I asked. She swallowed her bite. I told him I was busy. Busy doing what? She stepped closer and hooked a finger under the collar of my gray t-shirt, tugging it once like she owned the right. Her eyes stayed on mine. Fence line, she said. Still needs checking. I caught her wrist gently, not stopping her, holding her there. She didn't pull away. The smoke rolled between us. The tea smell sat cool under it. Elena rose on her toes and kissed me first clean, and sure, no hesitation. Her lips were warm. The taste was smoke and tea and a little salt from the day's heat. Her fingers curled into my shirt and held. I answered slow, making it a choice, not a grab. My stubble scraped her upper lip. She made a small sound against my mouth and pressed closer anyway. When we broke, her forehead rested against mine for a beat. Her breath was steady now. My family sent me here as punishment, she said. And I built something. I looked past her at the land, at the posts and wire, at the scar where the fire had tried to take it. Then I looked back at her. Let them regret it, I said. She smiled small and sharp, already started.